Hey guys, Mike Armstrong here with SportStop in New Hampshire, bringing you another video. Today we have episode 3 of the traditional stringing tutorial. So I'm actually stringing up a 6-diamond traditional on a Nike Lakota that's been dyed for the New Hampshire Tomahawks. If you're looking to follow along, check out the videos. Episode 1 and 2 are already up. So now, what we did in the previous episodes was episode 1, we set up our leather and our sidewalls. And then episode 2, we did our first row. Alright, so today what we're going to try to do is get this next row done, and then also the center. Alright, so the center is probably the trickiest part of the traditional, is making that transfer from the second row into the middle row. But we're going to do our best to keep it as simple as possible. Alright, so where we left off, we had just gone through the top of the leather on the first row, and now what we're going to do is we're going to start onto the second row. So the first knot that you're going to do is going to be in the middle of the knot of the leather right here. Okay, so now you want to wrap it around the back side here. You don't want anything to be on this front piece right here. All right, so now you're going to go through the middle of the hole like that, and now from the bottom, from the first row, we were going around the back and then under the string. So now for the top row, because we're going down, we're going to go through the back and then over the top of it. Alright, so just like this. Alright, so see how I'm on the top of it? And then you pull down like that. Alright. So now, this is where things get a little tricky. So for traditionals, you need to really keep the top nice and tight so that it doesn't bag behind the plastic of the head. Alright, so what will happen oftentimes is people will leave this top too loose, and then when you go to shoot, not necessarily pass, but when you put some pressure on it and you go to shoot, this will stretch back and you'll clip the top of the plastic. So to avoid that, what you want to do is keep that top nice and tight. So when you go into your second row and also your middle row, the leathers on the top are going to be pulled to the side. You see how it's not straight down like that? All right. So now to judge this, what you want to do is you want to use your fingers, all right? Keep it nice and flush with the plastic here. You don't want to pull it back or anything, or forward either, all right? And pull to the side and then tighten around it, around the tension that you create. All right, you don't want to be too tight, but you definitely don't want it to be loose. All right, so now that that's nice and tight, you let go and it pulls it off to the side like that. Okay, that's okay. When we get to this end piece and we tighten it, it's all going to come together and it's all going to straighten out. All right, so now use your hand to pull it and make sure that it's nice and straight. All right, and then when you let go, it pulls to the side. Okay, so we're good. We got that first knot done. Now we're going to start connecting to the knots in the first row. All right, so what you want to do is you find that little hole in between and you go up from the bottom in that little hole right there. Okay, now you pull it through, and you remember you want to go over the top of the string on the second row. So this is where having one string for the whole head gets a little tough because you have to pull a long way to get it to the end. But it's worth it at the end. And it also tangles like crazy. Alright. So now again, because we're still in this top section, we want to make sure that we're pulling the leather across so that we're keeping it nice and tight. Alright. So then we go to our next knot. And what you want to do is you want to position the next knot in between the two knots on your first row. All right, so 2 knots are right there. We want to position it right in the middle. Okay. So now around the back and over the top. So now your best bet is to get all that slack out and then position the knot and not try to do it all at once. Okay, so now again we're pulling the leather across so that it's straight, and then tightening it nice and tight, and then we go through our next knot. All right, so remember, right through that hole that you see right in the knot there. Let's see if I can point it out right there. Okay, so we go right up through that hole, just like that. And there's not, of course. Okay, so now keep that knot there. Pull it nice and tight. Okay, so now that we're about a quarter of the way down the head, we're going to start creating our pocket. Okay, so now what this is gonna take is a little bit more string in between the leathers, all right? And this is going to allow the leather to come back and create that pocket. So now what we want to do is we want to start pulling back like we were on the first one, as opposed to pulling sideways. We want to start pulling back, okay? So now you're going to go in between the two knots like you did the first one to create that diamond. Okay, so just like that. See how it's right in between the two? Alright, so now you go up through the hole there. Pull it out. Okay. So now a lot of times what I'll do is I'll over tighten and then pull the leather out. Alright, so you pull it tight like that, where obviously you don't want it there. But then when you pull the leather out to where you want the pocket, it'll pull the cross lace with it. Alright, so that's just kind of an easy way of judging the distance, as opposed to just pulling it to the distance. You want it, over tighten and then pull the leather out. Okay. So next knot right in between. And then up through that hole. I know it's tough to see with my hands there. It's tough to get an angle. So now this is where you start wanting the pocket. Alright, so we're going to do one more with a decent length to it, and then we're going to start tightening again to create that defined pocket as opposed to just a big boat. Okay. Again, right in the center of the knots on the first row. And then up. Sorry if the camera's just shaking, my elbow was on the table. Alright, so we got our decent pocket going right there. Now we're going to tighten up for that last knot there, okay? So we are on the last one for the second row. Okay, so you want it to be a little lower. Alright, up through that last hole. And we are done the second row. Okay, do a little bit of adjusting here. Alright, so now you see when I pull it, I can get that leather out of the way. Sorry about that. Hold on just a second. SportStop in New Hampshire. Mike speaking. All day. Get those telemarketers all day. All right, so you see when I pull it tight, pull it back, it's nice and even. All right, and then actually pulling, getting some tension on these. All right, so when you pull it back, if there's a bunch of slack in here and it's really loose, you want to go back down and tighten it up a little bit. All right, when you pull the leather out as far as it can go, you want there to be some tension. You don't want it to be super tight because you want the leather to be broken in a little bit, and then it stretches itself out, and then the cross lace gets real tight, and that's gonna give you that perfect balance of leather to cross lace, creating the pocket. All right. So now that you're on your last one, this is where people are going to disagree. People are going to think I'm doing it wrong. All right. There's a bunch of different ways to make this transition here at the bottom. Okay. I like to use 2 or 3 different knots. All right, and then create a little landing strip right here at the bottom. Some people will cut holes in the leather and tie the knot off at the bottom. There's a bunch of different ways, but this is how I do it. Okay, so right now you're tied into your first row. Okay, and you got this big gap right here. All right. So what you want to do is kind of like how you would tie the top hole of a mesh. All right, so you go around the back and over the top of the string. And you do it again. Okay. And then what I'll do is I cross over to the next. In this one, instead of going over, since we're going to be going up again, you go over the back of the leather and then underneath the string. Okay? And that's because what we're doing is we're going up. So when you wrap it around, you want to pull up and have it be pulling against the wrap. All right? Whereas if we were going up and you went over, it would just be a string around the back and then up and over. So you want it to pull against the string that you wrap around. Okay? And now what I'm going to do is, because when we go back down this last row, or the second row here, we're going to tie into one of these bottom knots that we have. So to match it up, I'm going to go through the back hole like that, and then underneath. All right. So now if you look closely, I went through the back right there. Let me see if I can get this turned around so that you can see it. All right. So I went right through one of the bottom hole. So again, this is going to be kind of tricky. You don't have to go through the bottom hole again. You can just wrap it twice. But this just kind of tends to look a little better. You know what? Not even going to do it. We're just going to wrap it twice to make it easy for you guys, because I can tell already that you couldn't see that at all. All right. So forget that move. In fact, I'll probably just edit that out. All right. So now you wrap around that. Make sure that you're in the right spot. And then you're going to do it again. Okay. Around the back and underneath. That nice and tight. All right. So then you see how it creates this little landing strip right there at the bottom. All right, 2 knots. Nothing big. It just helps with the transition. All right. If you try it any other way, you'll see how awkward it is once you get there. So you gotta kind of do something a little out of the ordinary. All right. So now from that middle piece, from that bottom, we're gonna start going up the middle. Okay. So now this is the most important one. Okay. You want to make sure that it is even. All right. So you pull the pocket back like that, and you notice how it gets thinner and then gets wider up at the top. Okay, so that means that you have to have that distance in between with the cross lace, and getting the tension right can be kind of tricky. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through the hole in the next row, or the second row there. Pull it through. Remember, we're going around the back and then underneath the string, so we pull up on it. And then we're going to tie the knot right in between the two. You want to create those diamonds. Right, and now remember, it's important to keep going back and pulling where you want the pocket to be. All right, so that you can see how far you want the knot to be. All right, you see how there's not a huge distance there. So you want to keep it pretty tight. Through the next hole. And because we're going up, you're going to actually go through these holes here a little differently. All right? Instead of when you were going down, so when you were going down on this row here, you were going down through the knot. All right? For these ones, you were going up through the knot here. All right? For these ones here, you're going to go down. So this right here, this knot, see how the hole right there? You go down through that as opposed to up, okay? All right, so now for our next one. And you're probably going to have to adjust the leathers a little bit. So if you see a lot of slack in the leather, just pull them a little tighter. You know, it'll break in. So it doesn't have to be, you know, just barely legal or anything like that when you're finished. It'll get there. You'll end up having to probably tighten the leathers over time anyways. So don't worry about that. Okay, so get that nice and snug. Move on to your next. Now at this point, I can pretty much keep my finger here, right there, and keep it pulled tight, all right? Because I'm already past where the pocket was. So this can be kind of tricky getting the tension right. Okay, so now to our next one. So this is where things get a little tricky, because you want to judge it so that the tension is tight enough, is loose enough to not pull it over, but you want it to be tight enough so that it has that same angle that we were talking about here, so that when you pull it straight, it's gonna straighten out when you pull it tight at the end. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna hold it here. Once you get up to this part, hold it where you need it to be, and then tighten it around your fingers so that it's not too loose or too tight. All right. Sorry, computer's being a little funky. Okay, so we go back to pulling, making sure that our pocket's nice and straight. Good. Alright, so now we're just about finished up here with the middle row. You're going to put this one all the way up to the knot. Alright, and this is the critical one. This is where you want to really make sure you're nice and snug so that you pull it across and it won't bag out. Okay, that's good. And now we go through that one. It's looking good. All right. So it looks like we're done our middle row. You're going to do the same thing that you did up here. All right. You're going to go right through that top part of the leather. All right. Keep that nice and snug. All right. And there's your middle row done. All right. So now we got 3 rows done, 2 to go. All right. So I guess I'll see you guys at episode 4.